The afternoon sun bathed the small town in golden light as Mary, a 92-year-old woman, decided it was time for a change in her life. With slow but determined steps, she pushed open the door of the local animal shelter. The bell above jingled softly. "Can I help you, ma'am?" asked a young employee, surprised to see such a fragile-looking elderly woman entering alone. "Yes, dear," Mary replied with a gentle smile. "I'm here to adopt a dog." The employee hesitated. "A dog? Are you sure? We have some very gentle cats that might—" Mary raised her hand to interrupt. "No, no, I want a dog. A big one, if possible." As they walked through the aisles, the sound of barking echoed off the walls. Mary suddenly stopped in front of a kennel. Inside, a gray pit bull stared at her with curious eyes. "This one," Mary said firmly. "I want this one." The employee paled. "Ma'am, that might not be the best idea. Pit bulls can be unpredictable." Mary laughed, a surprisingly robust sound for someone so small. "Dear, at 92, I'm unpredictable too." Hours later, Mary left the shelter with Kiko, her new companion. As they walked down the street, neighbors watched with open mouths, whispering worriedly, "Has she gone mad? Someone should warn her family. That dog will kill her." Unaware of the comments, Mary smiled at Kiko. "Don't worry, my dear. They'll learn. We both have much to teach about not judging by appearances." Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. That evening, Mary's phone didn't stop ringing. Concerned family members pleaded with her to reconsider. "Mom, please," begged her daughter. "This is too dangerous." Mary calmly stroked Kiko's head as he slept peacefully at her feet. "Darling, life is too short to live in fear. Sometimes the most unexpected risks bring the greatest joys." As night fell over the town, Mary and Kiko curled up together, two unlikely beings brought together by fate, ready to conquer the world, defying all expectations. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Mary's house, once silent, now echoed with the sound of heavy paws and gentle laughter. Kiko, the pit bull many had feared, proved to be a gentle giant day by day. One sunny morning, Mary sat on her porch, watching Kiko play in the garden. Her neighbor Sarah approached hesitantly. "Mary," Sarah began, her voice filled with concern, "aren't you afraid of—" "Well, you know." Mary smiled, her eyes shining with a wisdom only age could bring. "Afraid, Sarah? The only fear I have is not enjoying every moment of this life. Look at him." Kiko chased a butterfly, his tongue hanging out, completely unaware of the prejudices surrounding him. "See how he loves unconditionally," Mary continued. "We humans could learn a lot from that." Over the months, Mary and Kiko's routine solidified. Every morning, they walked through the local park together. At first, people kept their distance, casting suspicious glances. But over time, the sight of the fragile, 92-year-old woman and her loyal companion became a beloved part of the town's scenery. One afternoon, as Mary knitted in her favorite armchair with Kiko at her feet, she heard a noise from the kitchen. She tried to stand, but her legs gave out. Before she could call for help, Kiko was by her side, offering support. "Oh, my dear," Mary whispered, tears in her eyes. "What would I do without you?" That night, as the moon bathed the room in silver light, Mary lay in bed with Kiko curled up beside her. She stroked his ears and reflected on the past few months. "You know, Kiko," she murmured, "they said I was crazy to bring you home. But the truth is, you brought me back to life." Kiko lifted his head, his eyes meeting Mary's with an understanding beyond words. "We're an unlikely pair, aren't we?" Mary chuckled softly. "An old lady and a feared pit bull. But look at us now, inseparable." Night after night, day after day, Mary and Kiko strengthened their bond. Every shared moment, every challenge overcome, was living proof that love and understanding could blossom in the most unexpected places. The community, which had once viewed them with suspicion, now watched in admiration at the mutual devotion between the elderly woman and her loyal canine companion. The sun had barely risen when the quiet street was brutally interrupted by a piercing scream filled with pure terror. "Help! Someone help me!" The voice was unmistakable. It was Mary. Louise, the neighbor from next door, dropped her coffee cup, the hot liquid spilling across the kitchen floor. Her heart raced as she desperately knocked on Mary's door. "Mary! Mary, are you okay? Open the door!" For a terrifying moment, the scream stopped. Louise pressed her ear against the wood, trying to hear any sound. Suddenly, a deep, threatening growl made her blood run cold. "Oh no," she whispered, stepping back. Kiko, what have you done?" The street was now in complete chaos. Neighbors gathered, some crying, others debating what to do. The distant sound of sirens grew closer, increasing the tension in the air. "I always said that dog was dangerous," shouted a man, his voice trembling with anger and fear. "Poor Mary," sobbed an elderly woman. "She trusted him so much." The sirens grew louder, closer. The fear was palpable. Every second felt like an eternity. What would they find when the door opened? What fate had befallen Mary? As the police arrived, their tires screeching on the curb, a final scream echoed from inside the house, followed by a dull thud. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with unimaginable terror. The entire neighborhood held its breath, eyes fixed on Mary's front door, waiting for it to open and reveal the horror they all feared. Months earlier, the silence in Mary's house had been overwhelming. Every room seemed to echo with the absence of Henry, her husband of 65 years. Sitting in her favorite armchair, Mary stared at the empty chair across the room where Henry had read his newspaper every morning. "Oh, Henry," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "How am I supposed to go on without you?" The walls, once witnesses to laughter and lively conversations, now seemed to close in on her, amplifying her loneliness. The days dragged on, each one lonelier than the last. One morning as she sipped her tea, Mary heard a commotion outside. Curious, she approached the window and saw a truck from the local animal shelter parked on the street. Something stirred within her, a spark of hope she hadn't felt in weeks. "Maybe," she murmured to herself. An idea began to form in her mind. That afternoon, Mary found herself standing in front of the local animal shelter. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and anticipation as she entered, greeted by a cacophony of barks and meows. "Can I help you, ma'am?" asked a young employee with a friendly smile. Mary hesitated for a moment. I'm looking for a companion." As she walked through the aisles, Mary grew increasingly discouraged. None of the animals seemed to connect with her as she had hoped, until a pair of amber eyes stared at her from one of the last kennels. A gray pit bull, large and muscular, but with such a gentle gaze that Mary felt her heart melt. "This one," she said, her voice firm for the first time in months. "I want to meet this one." The employee hesitated. "Ma'am, are you sure? Pit bulls can be complicated." But Mary wasn't listening. She knelt with some effort in front of the kennel, and the pit bull approached, pressing his nose against the bars. "Hello, my dear," Mary whispered, tears in her eyes. "I think we both need a friend, don't we?" In that moment, something inexplicable happened. A connection, a spark of mutual understanding passed between the elderly woman and the rejected dog. Mary knew with a certainty she hadn't felt in a long time that she had found her new companion. "I'll call him Kiko," she declared, standing with renewed determination, "and we're going home." As she signed the adoption papers, Mary felt for the first time since Henry's death that she had a purpose again. She knew she would face challenges and concerns from her loved ones, but she also knew that with Kiko by her side, she wouldn't be alone anymore. "Let's go, Kiko," she said as they left the shelter together. "We have a new life ahead of us." And so, Mary and Kiko set off with slow but determined steps to conquer the world together. Two lonely hearts finding solace in each other. The soft sound of paws on the wooden floor echoed through Mary's house, mingling with the clinking of teacups and the occasional contented sigh from the elderly woman. It was a Sunday morning, 3 months after Kiko's arrival, and the routine that had developed between the two felt as natural as the sunrise. Mary sat in her favorite armchair, watching Kiko lazily chew on a toy at her feet. She smiled as she remembered the turbulent first days. "Do you remember when you knocked over the flower vase, my dear?" she said, leaning forward to scratch Kiko's ear. "I thought we'd never understand each other." Kiko lifted his head, his amber eyes fixing on Mary with a devotion that melted her heart. The phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Sarah, Mary's daughter. "Mom," Sarah's voice was worried. "How are you?" "The dog isn't causing any trouble, is he?" Mary chuckled softly. Oh, Sarah, if only you could see. Kiko is the gentlest companion I could have wished for. Did you know he helps me get up when my legs are tired? There was a moment of surprised silence on the other end of the line. He, he does that? Yes, darling, and more. He reminds me to take my medication, accompanies me on our daily walks. Honestly, I think I'm healthier now than I've been in years. As the days passed, the unlikely duo became a familiar sight in the neighborhood. Mary with her slow but determined steps, and Kiko, always attentive and protective by her side. Neighbors who had once crossed the street to avoid them now stopped to chat, charmed by the pit bull's gentleness. One afternoon, as they returned from their walk, Mary stumbled on the sidewalk. Before she could fall, Kiko was there, steady as a rock, offering her support. "Oh, my hero," Mary murmured, regaining her balance as tears of gratitude shimmered in her eyes. That night, as she lay in bed with Kiko curled up beside her, Mary reflected on the changes in her life. "You know, Kiko," she whispered, stroking the dog's soft fur, "when Henry died, I thought my life was over. But you brought me back to life. Who would have thought my savior would be a pit bull?" Kiko responded with a soft snore, snuggling closer to Mary. The months passed, and the bond between them only grew stronger. Mary, who had once feared loneliness, now found joy in each day. And Kiko, the dog many had feared, had found a home where he was loved unconditionally. Together, they proved that love and loyalty could blossom in the most unexpected places, overcoming prejudice and fear. And while the rest of the world slept, in the small house on Oak Street, an elderly woman and her loyal canine companion lay with their hearts beating in perfect harmony. The day began like any other on Oak Street. The summer sun was already warming the sidewalks as Mary opened the curtains, Kiko by her side, lazily wagging his tail. "What a beautiful day, isn't it, my dear?" Mary smiled, stroking Kiko's head. Little did she know that this peaceful day would soon turn into a nightmare. It was almost 11 a.m. when the first scream echoed through the neighborhood. Louise, watering her plants, dropped the watering can. Her heart raced as she ran to the fence, her wide eyes fixed on Mary's house. "Help! Someone help me!" It was Mary's voice, filled with pure terror. Louise pounded on the door. "Mary! Mary, are you okay? Open the door!" More screams followed, interrupted by wild barking. A shiver ran down Louise's spine. Her worst fears seemed to be coming true. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Kiko has attacked Mary." Within minutes, the street was in chaos. Neighbors gathered, some in panic, others frozen in shock. Tom, the neighbor across the street, was already on the phone. "Police, we need help urgently. We believe an elderly woman is being attacked by a pit bull." Louise, driven by a courage she didn't know she had, ran to Mary's front door. She could hear sounds of struggle and breaking objects inside. "Mary!" she shouted, desperately pounding on the door. "Mary, open the door! We're here to help!" For a moment there was silence. Then Mary's trembling voice came through. "No, don't come in! Everything's fine!" But the wild barking that followed contradicted her words. Louise stepped back, her heart pounding. "What do we do?" she asked the gathered neighbors. "We have to get in there," someone shouted. "It's too dangerous," another countered. The sound of sirens in the distance brought temporary relief, but the tension remained. What was really happening inside that house? Louise, determined to do something, began to circle the house looking for a way in. She noticed the bathroom window was slightly open. "I'm going in," she declared, surprising herself with her own resolve. "Louise, no!" "That's insane," someone called out. But Louise was already in motion. With her heart racing and hands trembling, she began to climb the side of the house, determined to reach the window. Meanwhile, Mary's screams, interrupted by barking and growling, continued. The entire street held its breath, all eyes fixed on the house, filled with fear of the worst but hoping for a miracle. What would Louise find when she got inside? What had really happened to Mary and Kiko? The tension was palpable, and every second felt like an eternity as the drama unfolded on quiet Oak Street. With her heart in her throat, Louise finally managed to squeeze through the bathroom window. The inside of the house was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the screams and barking of moments before. "Mary," Louise called softly, her voice trembling. Kiko, cautiously, she made her way down the hallway, each step echoing in the oppressive silence. As she approached the living room, she heard muffled voices. Louise froze, holding her breath. "It's over, Mary. Give me your late husband's jewelry, and no one gets hurt." The voice was male, threatening. Louise's heart raced. It wasn't Kiko who posed the danger. It was an intruder. "Never." Mary's voice was firm, defiant. "That jewelry is my memory of Henry. You'll have to kill me to take it." Louise peered through the crack in the door, and the scene she saw left her speechless. A masked man stood threateningly close to Mary, but between them, growling fiercely, was Kiko. Far from being a threat, Kiko was protecting Mary with every fiber of his being. At that moment, the sirens wailed nearby. The intruder, startled, made a sudden move toward Mary. "Kiko, now!" Mary commanded. In a split second, Kiko lunged forward, clamping his powerful jaws around the man's arm. The man screamed in pain, dropping a knife Louise hadn't noticed before. Louise seized the distraction and rushed into the room. "Mary, are you okay?" Mary, surprised and relieved, turned to Louise. "Thank God you're here. Call the police." But it was no longer necessary. In the next moment, the front door was broken down and police officers stormed in, guns drawn. "Police! Everyone stay where you are!" The scene the officers found was surreal. A masked man lay on the floor, Kiko holding him firmly in place. Mary stood with a triumphant expression, and Louise looked on in a mix of shock and admiration. As the intruder was handcuffed and led away, neighbors crowded the entrance, stunned by the revelation. "Kiko! Kiko saved Mary," someone murmured in disbelief. Mary, tears in her eyes, knelt beside Kiko and hugged him tightly. "My hero," she whispered. "You're the best friend I could have ever asked for." The news spread quickly. The pit bull everyone had feared had proven to be a hero, saving his elderly owner from a dangerous intruder. The community's perception changed overnight. In the days that followed, Mary and Kiko were celebrated. Neighbors came to apologize for their hasty judgments, bringing treats for Kiko and flowers for Mary. "You know," Mary said to Louise one afternoon as they watched Kiko play in the garden, "sometimes love and loyalty come in the most unexpected packages. Kiko has taught me never to judge a book by its cover or a dog by its breed." Louise nodded, moved. "You two have taught us all a valuable lesson about prejudice and unconditional love." And so, in the quiet Oak Street, an elderly woman and her loyal pit bull became symbols of courage, loyalty, and the transformative power of true love, proving that heroes can appear in the most unexpected places. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Thanks to our valued viewers, we continue to improve every day. Please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up.